Before reaching the White House, Abraham Lincoln had buried his mother, his first love, and two of his young children. Behind closed doors, he carried the financial weight of a general store that went completely bankrupt, alongside a political career defined by nearly 50 years of election losses. Yet this same man held a fracturing country together through its most violent conflict and destroyed the institution of slavery in America. The central mystery of Lincoln's life remains how a man who began with nothing and spent decades facing rejection became the anchor for a country that was coming apart. Born in 1809, Lincoln began his life in a one-room Kentucky cabin built with a packed dirt floor and no glass in the windows. When he was 9, his mother died from milk sickness, a poisoning caused by drinking milk from cows that had grazed on toxic white snake root. With his mother gone and survival demanding constant physical labor, Lincoln spent less than 12 total months of his entire life inside a classroom. He walked miles through the woods to borrow a single book, reading the pages by the dim light of the cabin fire after working in the fields all day. Teaching himself to read and write in near total isolation required a sheer force of will that would define his response to hardship for the rest of his life. In his 20s, a general store he opened in New Salem, Illinois, collapsed completely. The failure saddled him with heavy debts that took 15 years to finally pay off. Turning to politics, he managed a few minor local victories, but these were overshadowed by public rejections, including a bitter defeat in an 1855 Senate race and another high-profile Senate loss to Stephen Douglas in 1858. During these early political years, his close companion Anne Rutledge died abruptly of typhoid fever, plunging him into a grief that alarmed everyone around him. His law partner and friends noted that he suffered from recurring periods of melancholy, a condition historians now recognize as clinical depression. Despite his mental state, he built a solid legal practice through rigorous self-study. He returned overpayments to clients and walked away from cases he considered unjust, earning a reputation for absolute integrity. He married Mary Todd in 1842, hoping to build a family. 8 years later, they stood over the grave of their 3-year-old son, Edward. Burying his loved ones while surviving public defeat functioned as a psychological training ground, building a tolerance for pain that he would soon need on a national scale. Elected as the 16th president in 1860, Lincoln watched 7 southern states secede over the issue of slavery before he even took the oath of office. This chart compares American military deaths across major conflicts. The Civil War killed roughly 620,000 to 750,000 soldiers, a death toll higher than American losses in World War I and World War II combined. As the bodies piled up, Lincoln faced demands from radical abolitionists, conservatives, insubordinate generals, and border states threatening to join the Confederacy. Right in the middle of this intense national pressure, typhoid fever struck inside the White House itself. His 11-year-old son Willie died in his bed. While the country mourned its sons, Lincoln mourned his own in the rooms upstairs. He had spent his life learning to function through loss, a prerequisite for the survival of the Union itself. On January 1, 1863, Lincoln signed the Emancipation Proclamation. It declared freedom for enslaved people in Confederate territory, though he strategically excluded Union-loyal border states to keep them from seceding. That document shifted the objective of the conflict. The Union Army was no longer fighting merely to hold a map together, but to end human bondage. The order had immediate military consequences, leading to the enlistment of nearly 200,000 black soldiers and sailors into the Union forces. Months later, standing over a mass grave in Pennsylvania, Lincoln delivered the Gettysburg Address. He spoke for barely 2 minutes, using roughly 270 words. This ability to distill a national crisis into a few concise sentences was the result of an education Lincoln had spent his life pursuing, beginning with the borrowed books of his youth. By April 1865, the Confederate lines finally broke. For a few brief days, those close to the president said he finally seemed to be at peace. That peace ended on the night of April 14th at Ford's Theater, exactly 5 days after the war effectively ended at Appomattox. John Wilkes Booth, a stage actor and Confederate sympathizer, slipped into the presidential box and shot Lincoln from behind. His body was placed on a funeral train that traveled 1,700 miles across the United States, watched by massive crowds of ordinary citizens mourning in the open countryside. Lincoln absorbed the loss of his family, clinical depression, and decades of rejection. Every failure built the endurance needed to carry a collapsing nation. History requires us to ask, is failure really the opposite of greatness, or is it the essential architecture that builds it?